Business Committee will come to order. Today we're having a hearing on the military service to small business ownership, supporting Americans' veteran entrepreneurs. Good afternoon and welcome to all of the witnesses. We have a distinguished panel here today, and I thank each of them for making the time to be here. And I also want to thank my colleague, Senator Proulx, for his leadership on helping get this important hearing underway today and for proposing legislation to strengthen the SBA program for veterans. Our colleague, Senator Shaheen, I know will be joining us, and she also has legislation that she's proposing. And my colleague, the ranking member, I understand is on his way, so we will hear from him when he arrives. The men and women who serve our nation deserve the best opportunities and care when they return home. It's our solemn duty as the U.S. government to meet those obligations to our veterans. And there are significant problems, as we've all been hearing about at the Veterans Administration, and that's why we need to immediately prioritize getting veterans access to health care they need, and at the same time ensuring that the VA identifies the structural reforms that are important to helping our veterans in the long run so this situation doesn't occur again. Today's hearing is about another issue facing our veterans. It's ensuring that they have economic opportunities when they come back from military service. Senator Risch and I want to see more veterans have a chance to become entrepreneurs, to open up businesses and create jobs, giving veterans the training and tools and resources they need to start small businesses and ensure that they will be able to make ends meet. I say this because we know that 75% of small businesses create 75% of the job growth in America, and we think with veterans at the helm, they will also hire more veterans. They will be able to provide for themselves and their families and transitions back to civilian life. I'm particularly concerned about the amount of new veterans that we are seeing. There are 2.8 million veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. With continued withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan, the population of returning veterans will increase, and by some estimates, we will have another 1 million veterans over the next 5 years. Last year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that unemployment rates for post-9/11 veterans was 9%. So that is compared to the national unemployment rate of 7.4. So while there has been some improvement this year in our economy, employment for new veterans remains a very, very serious issue. The Iraq and Afghanistan's Veterans of America, which represent these new veterans, indicate that employment opportunities is the top concern for its members. Today's hearing is about what the Small Business Administration can do to help support small business ownership and entrepreneurial development for our nation's veterans, particularly those returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to give our veterans the chance to become creators. Supporting veteran entrepreneurs will be part of our toolkit to ensure that veterans have a successful transition to civilian life and make ends meet. And we want to make sure that we are helping them become the small business owners of the future. We have lots of great examples. In my state, Seattle-based VECA, which stands for Veterans Electrical Contractor Association, was founded by World War II veterans and has a long history of training veterans. Over the last 10 years, the company has employed more than 300 veterans. And we had a very proud moment at that company a year and a half ago when I was able to take Senator Inouye there, and they were all so happy to be with him and to have their picture taken with a war hero. In 1971, Jim Leah, veterans of the United States Air Army Corps in World War II, which is now the U.S. Air Force, along with Neil Anderson and Jim Burroughs, started another company in Seattle called Cascade Design to better provide mattress and greater comfort for hiking and camping. So a lot of people may know them or have slept on one of their air mattresses. But over the last 40 years, this company has become a household name of innovation and continues to hire veterans as well. Spokane-based Quantum Solutions provides building products and floor-to-ceiling, and Quantum is owned by Dale Storr, a former service member and prisoner of war who was shot down in an A-10 during Operation Desert Storm. He recently retired as a lieutenant colonel from the Washington Air National Guard. And of course, we'll have our own witness here from another witness, Trena Payton, who started a technology company in Lacey, Washington. The Small Business Administration has a number of programs that provide training and resources to our veterans to help them start these small businesses. And in fiscal year 2013, the SBA provided assistance to more than 144,000 veterans through the Small Business Development Center, through the Women's Business Center, and through the Service Corps of Retired Executives called SCORE, and the Veterans Business Outreach. I want more veterans to have a chance of getting the support and help through the SBA programs, and I want to explore what we can do to make sure that we are raising the awareness so that veterans know that these programs exist in our country. Again, not every veteran will want to pursue these SBA programs or opportunities, but we want to make sure that they know about them. And I want to make sure SBA programs for those veterans are streamlined so that they are very easy to use once veterans do know about them. I'm pleased that today the SBA will be announcing that they are running public service announcements about these veteran entrepreneur programs on a worldwide armed forces network. This TV and radio network reaches our military bases, and I also urge the SBA to reach out to television stations in military communities across the United States to encourage them to run these public service announcements in hopes of getting the words out. You never know where the next great idea is going to come from, but we know that the talent of the men and women who serve our country is great, and we know that they can add to the opportunities for economic development in our country. Senator Pryor introduced 2396, the Veteran Entrepreneur Training and Opportunities Act of 2014. The bill would expand the SBA's existing entrepreneurial development initiative targeted to veterans, and it would codify SBA programs like Boots to Business and the Veterans Women Ignition and Spirit of Entrepreneurship and the Entrepreneur Boot Camp for Veterans. And so I want to thank him for all of his leadership in trying to make the best of these programs, solid programs, in allowing us to really further communicate the opportunities that veterans have in seeking these programs. Having the specificity and the concrete nature of these programs in statute, I think, will help. So thank you for your leadership with that. So now I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Senator Risch, and ask him for an opening statement, and then any of our colleagues who would like to make a statement before we go to our witnesses.
Madam Chairman, first of all, let me say thank you for holding this timely meeting. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on right now as far as veterans are concerned and with the Veterans Administration and some of the shabby treatment that veterans are getting. I think it's really important that every American live out the commitment we've made. The veterans have given us their absolute best. We owe it to them to give them our absolute best. As veterans come back and reintegrate into the free market and free enterprise system, they need help at times. And the VA, as we've seen, has fallen down on a job badly in some instances. And here we have an opportunity in a little different area, namely the area of reintegration, to actually do something about it. We have some programs that have started. They're somewhat small. They've been pilot programs. And we need to see what's working and what isn't working. I have every confidence that through the SBA, we can do this a lot more efficiently and a lot better than has been done in some of the other federal agencies, not the least of which is because we are smaller, and we do give them substantially closer oversight through this committee. We have a great panel here of people who are going to address us on those issues. I have Gary Multanen here from Idaho. He is a veteran, serves on the board of directors SBDC. I'm anxious to hear his insight into these important issues. Madam Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Risch, and again, thank you for helping us get this hearing set and for your...
Madam Chairman, can I, one other thing, Senator Fisher has to leave at 3:30, and I know she has some input and some questions, so when we get to that, if I could yield my space to her and anybody else.
Very gentlemanly of you.
Thank
very
you
gentlemanly of you. Senator Pryor, did you want to make a statement?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really want to thank you and Senator Risch for y'all's leadership on this, and want to thank our panelists. Many of you all are veterans, and I appreciate your service and just appreciate what you're doing here today. Last November in Arkansas, I was honored to host a Small Business Committee field hearing with a group of Arkansas veterans, and they shared their experiences and challenges that they face in starting and expanding their small businesses. And veterans, in my view, are natural entrepreneurs, and they already have the skills, the experience, the leadership necessary to start a business and to create jobs. For those who want to pursue the path of entrepreneurship, we should be there to support them as they get their businesses off the ground. So that's why I introduced the Veterans Entrepreneurship and Training Opportunities Act, or the VET Opportunities Act, as we call it. This legislation is co-sponsored by Senator Landrieu, as we all know, former chairwoman of this committee, and is supported by the VFW, the American Legion, and the Association of the United States Navy. It's bipartisan legislation and improves and expands upon successful small business administration programs to ensure that our transitioning service member and veteran entrepreneurs have the tools they need to start their businesses with a solid foundation. Ms. Payton, who's going to testify today, she benefited from one of these programs, and the Veterans Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship, also known as VWISE, has a proven track record. During my time at the Arkansas field hearing, one witness described this program as phenomenal. EBV, a similar program to VWISE, focuses on the unique challenges veterans with disabilities face. These two programs alone have over half of our participants going on to start small businesses. They do this all the while leveraging limited federal dollars with substantial private support. So again, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for doing this today, and all the panelists want to thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Fisher?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding the hearing, and Senator Risch, thank you for your letting me ask questions first. And I would like to thank the members of the panel for being here today. I look forward to hearing your testimony and getting to our questions. Thank you.
Senator Shaheen, would you like to make a statement before we go to the witnesses? And I want to thank you for your leadership on this as well. You've been great in giving us input on legislation that hopefully we'll be acting on before the committee, and I know you represent a lot of veterans, so thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you also to Ranking Member Risch and Chair Caldwell for holding this hearing. I really just want to take a minute and introduce the New Hampshire person who's here testifying on the panel, Dan Proulx, and it's very nice to welcome you here, Dan. Dan is from a company called Monument Construction in Nashua, New Hampshire, and he's a Marine veteran who founded Monument in 2008. Dan and the employees at Monument provide complete construction services, including projects for federal agencies such as the VA, the Navy, the National Guard, and the Forestry Service, and he has really grown the business in a very impressive way in a very short time. From its first full year in 2009, when they saw $290,000 in revenues, to this year when they expect $12 million in revenue. This is the kind of small business growth that's very good for New Hampshire, that creates jobs, and good for the country. And I know we're going to hear from Dan about the challenges and successes that he has faced, but I had the opportunity to visit the business in Nashua back in January, and it was very impressive to see not only what you have done in the business, Dan, but your commitment to hiring other veterans. So thank you very much for being here, for all of your efforts, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. And thank you to all the panelists for being here.
Thank you very much, Senator Shaheen, and I know that your focus has been particularly on making sure that the financial fees that are paid by veterans in these programs don't preclude getting veterans to participate. So we're happy to discuss that with people, but we're going to go right down the aisle. So Mr. Jeppson, if you would start, introduce yourself, turn on the microphone, make sure the light's on, and if you could stick to 5 minutes, and then we'll let people ask questions after everyone is finished. But thank you all very much for being here.
Chairman Caldwell and Ranking Member Risch and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify on SBA's ongoing work to serve our veterans entrepreneurs across the country. We greatly appreciate this committee's support to our SBA's efforts to assist our nation's heroes and job creators. As small business owners, veterans continue to serve our country by creating critical employment opportunities and driving economic growth. They possess the skills, discipline, and leadership to start and operate small businesses in our communities. In fact, veterans over-index in entrepreneurship and are 45% more likely than those with no active duty military experience to be self-employed. According to the most recent U.S. Census data, nearly 1 in 10 small businesses are veteran-owned. These businesses generate over $1.2 trillion annually in receipts and employ nearly 5.8 million Americans. With over 21 million veterans in America and more than 250,000 service members transitioning from the military annually, SBA is focused on ensuring that they have the access to counseling, capital, contracting needed to start and grow successful businesses. In FY13, SBA supported more than $1.1 billion in 7A and 504 loans to more than 2,400 veteran-owned small businesses. In order to further expand access to capital for veterans, we also challenged the top 120 national and regional SBA lenders to increase their lending activity to veterans by 5% per year for the next 5 years. With this support from our lending partners, SBA will serve an additional 2,000 veterans and increase lending by an additional $475 million. Moreover, in January of 2014, we launched the Veterans Advantage, which reduced the upfront borrower fee to zero for qualified veteran-owned businesses receiving SBA Express loans up to $350,000. In the FY15 budget request, we outlined a plan to continue this program and to reduce the fee by half for all 7A loans over $350,000 to veterans. We also connect veteran entrepreneurs with contracting opportunities across the federal government. I'm very proud to report that for the first time ever, we met the 3% government-wide contracting goal for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses in FY12. We helped these veterans access more than $12 billion in federal prime contracts, and despite budget cuts, we expect good numbers on the FY13 scorecard. In terms of training and counseling in FY13, our nationwide resource partner network of VBOCs, SBDCs, WBCs, and the Volunteer SCORE mentors reached over 144,000 veterans in the U.S. In addition to these services, SBA also offers entrepreneurship training, including Boots to Business, VWise, EBV for veterans, service-disabled veterans, active duty service members, and their spouses. VWise and EBV are high-touch programs focused on the underserved communities. VWise helps women veterans, active duty service women, and female spouses learn the business skills necessary to turn an idea or a startup into a growth venture. As of next Friday, VWise will have trained over 1,300 women. EBV offers cutting-edge experiential entrepreneurship training in small business management for post-9/11 veterans and active duty service members with service-connected disabilities. Through EBV, over 1,000 veterans have been trained, and within 6 months of completing both EBV and VWise programs, there's a 56% start rate for new business ventures, and within 3 years, that rate increases to 72%. In January of 2013, SBA launched Boots for Business, the entrepreneurship track of the Department of Defense Transition Assistance Program. The curriculum provides valuable assistance to exploring self-employment opportunities by leading participants through the key steps of evaluating business concepts and the foundational knowledge required for developing a business plan. With the funding provided in the FY14 budget, SBA plans to expand the Boots to Business program to more military installations within the U.S. and launch the program at bases around the world. Boots to Business just achieved a milestone of training 10,000 service members, transitioning service members in the 2-day introduction to entrepreneurship portion of the program. We project that we will train an additional 12,000 to 15,000 participants through Boots to Business in FY14. As of this week, we began airing PSAs about Boots to Business on the military television channels, including the Armed Forces Network and the Pentagon Channel. I'd like to show you 2 video clips of about 30 seconds each. The first is Tony Tarrant, an EBV graduate who is in the process of transitioning from the Army and will be starting an optometry clinic back in his home state of Oregon.
You had it. Who's controlling this? Demos never work when you want them to, so it's okay. They'll get it in a second.
I promise you it's worth the wait. It really is good. And let me just talk, so I mentioned Tony's the
Yeah,
first.
they'll keep talking, and when they're ready, they'll cue us.
Okay, so Tony is a Boots to Business graduate, optometrist, spent his time in the service, and had participated in one of our business plan competitions that we had recently and did very well. The second person that you'll see is Sandra Gonzalez. She's not only an Army veteran, was an Army nurse, but is also married to an active duty military member, went through the Boost to Business program and started a business focused on providing homeschooling to learning disabled children. She had she's a mother of 6. She had a child with a learning disability, and she had come up with some innovative ways of teaching her own child, and so she has turned that into a business idea and leveraged not only Boost to Business but VWise as well. So,
Okay. Now we just need volume.
and I'll also mention while we're waiting for the volume that we produced these with a small amount of money. We only had to pay for the travel to the production studio. We partnered with the Defense Media Activity to produce these videos, so we didn't spend any SBA money on these other than.
I've enjoyed serving in the Army, but now it's time to transition. My plan is to start a business, an optometry clinic in my hometown. The Boots to Business Entrepreneurship track in the Transition Assistance Program gave me tactics for starting my own business, raising money, and it connected me with business mentors. I'm Captain and Dr. Tony Tern, and I'm starting my own business.
Boots to Business. Check it out at sba.gov/bootstobusiness.
We really
I've enjoyed serving in the Army.
We really believe that now that this will help build awareness for the transitioning service members. You know, we've reached 10,000 with really no marketing at all to the service members or to build awareness. And so with this playing on those military channels, we believe that we'll see our numbers really.
As a veteran, spouse, and mother, I needed a flexible career to juggle work and family. So I started my own business. I enrolled in the Boots to Business Entrepreneurship track in the Transition Assistance Program. It helped me start my business, raise money, and connect with business mentors. I'm Sandra Gonzalez, and I own my own company.
Boots to Business. Check it out at sba.gov/bootstobusiness.
At SBA and across the administration, we're committed to helping our servicemen and women achieve the American dream that they fought so valiantly to defend. Thank you for this opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Duso, again, welcome from Seattle. Thank you very much for being here.
Chairwoman Cantwell, from my great state of Washington, and Ranking Member Risch, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I want to talk to you about my job. I have a great job. I'm the director of the Region 10 Veterans Business Outreach Center. I have the great honor of serving our country's heroes and families. Our center serves 4 states, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Idaho, and 7 active military bases. We provide technical business assistance and training to veteran entrepreneurs and business owners, as well as other members of the military community. I could talk to you today about the facts. I could tell you that our small team of 2 has provided over 3,200 hours of free individualized business assistance to over 1,600 veterans since its opening in 2010. I could tell you how we have provided training for over 1,000 individuals, ranging in topics from general management, entrepreneurial skills, financial planning, marketing, sales, and government contracting. I could tell you that our clients have started over 50 businesses, received $45 million in contracting, generated $19 million in revenue, provided 1,500 jobs throughout our 4-state region. All of these facts are important. However, I would rather tell you about the cornerstone of what I do, the people I serve, and the companies they've built. I would like to talk to you about Rich. Rich is an 8-year veteran of the Air Force and Air Force Reserves. Rich and his brother were seasoned professionals in the construction industry when it saw a drastic slowdown in activity in 2007. In 2011, Rich and his brother came to us with the dream of starting a new business in an area they were both passionate, craft beer. We worked with them to develop a business plan, create a marketing plan, and develop a strong financial roadmap. They invested every nickel they had and used assistance from an SBA 7A loan to open Triple Horn Brewing Company. They finished 2013 with $700,000 in gross sales, created 10 new jobs, and are one of the fastest growing breweries in the state. Rich has utilized the skills he learned during his service, such as organization, goal setting, problem solving, confidence, and resolve to successfully grow his business. It should also be noted that Rich and his brother are second-generation small business owners. Their father was the recipient of a small business loan himself. I would also like to talk to you about Sam, a decorated Army veteran of both Iraq and Afghanistan. Sam's company, Strideline Spokane, imports and sells a popular line of socks sporting the skyline of his hometown, Spokane, Washington. In their first year of operation, Strideline Spokane generated $110,000 in revenue and secured contracts in 41 different retail stores in Washington and Idaho, projected to increase sales by $56,000 in the next 6 months. Strideline Spokane employs a team that includes a graphic designer, sales associate, and event staff. Sam has the rights to the designs for Denver, Salt Lake City, and Boise, where he plans to expand his business. I would like to end by telling you about Janelle. Janelle has served her country for over 20 years, including deployment in Afghanistan and current service in Washington Army National Guard's 81st Brigade Special Troops Battalion. We partnered with Janelle as she completed her business plan, conducted market research, and learned how to properly budget and utilize her resources. In November of that same year, she opened Janelle's Gluten-Free Market in her hometown of Everett, Washington. Last year, Janelle's store recognized over $561,000 in top-line sales. She has 5 full-time employees and plans to double her staff in the next year. She also participated in the VWise program, where she began planning for a second location. Janelle's Gluten-Free Market successfully launched its second store in Kirkland, Washington, 3 years after opening her first location, and we are currently working with her on the feasibility of a third location. Janelle's service to her community did not end in the Army or National Guard. She has designed her business to serve as a resource to the celiac community and brings in doctors and other guest speakers to assist customers in finding resources for their ailments. Janelle advocates for all veteran entrepreneurs to take advantage of SBA's resources. She emphasizes the value of classes offered at SBA and the VBOC, which guided her business decisions and helped her develop a well-grounded business plan. These are just a few of the extraordinary individuals I have the honor of working with. I have learned through working with them that veterans possess skills that make them uniquely prepared to be savvy business owners. During their service, they learn how to solve problems, work calmly under pressure, effectively utilize resources, and work tirelessly to achieve their goals. The veteran and military community is diverse and with a unique set of challenges. With your continued support and investment, we will not only sustain the work we're doing, but grow the breadth and reach of our assistance. Thank you for allowing me to share these stories with you and taking your time to listen to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to asking you some questions about that, too, both the data and the stories. So, Ms. Payton, welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Caldwell, Ranking Member Rich, and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Trena Payton, and I am president of ABN Technologies located in Lacey, Washington. I am also a member of Women Impacting Public Policy WIP, Women's President's Organization, WPO, and the Washington State Women's Veterans Advisory Committee. ABN Technologies is a veteran, women, and minority-owned company that I founded in 2003. We provide clients with IT solutions in 3 core areas: operational support, hardware and software procurement, and professional services. Today, ABN employs 12 employees, and in fiscal year 2013, we had revenues of $8.1 million. But I would not be where I am today without the skills I learned in VWise and the SBA's Express Loan Program. As the committee considers veteran entrepreneurship programs and how to enhance opportunities for our nation's veterans, I want to discuss my experience with some of the SBA programs available to entrepreneurs. Like many young people, I joined the Army to serve my country. The time I spent in the military opened up a new world to a young 19-year-old from the projects of Los Angeles. My experiences widened the possibilities of what life could hold beyond anything imaginable to me at the time. Once my enlistment was completed, I worked for organizations like the U.S. Army, Nordstrom, and Washington Mutual, until I came to a crossroad that led me to consider opening my own business. Like most people, I had no idea where to start or where to turn to get information. Luckily for me, a few blocks from my Washington Mutual office in downtown Seattle was the local SBA office. I began daily visits to the office during lunch breaks because each time I went, more and more questions were answered, and I generated more and more questions. The SBA is a great resource for information. Well, I took the leap, and in the span of 6 months, I started my business out of my second bedroom, quit my job, and was living on my savings, which I don't recommend. When I started my business, I made good and bad decisions like most startup businesses. However, most of the bad decisions I made were due in part to the piecemeal information that entrepreneurs get, coupled with that soldier's enthusiasm to get things done. I didn't know what I didn't know. It took over a year to land my first contract. From there, I had enough success to sustain myself and grow the business, but without consistent, repeatable results. Frustrated with my progress, in 2011, I saw an announcement for the VWise conference that was targeted for veteran women. It delivered an intensive immersion into entrepreneurship and a chance to be part of an ongoing educational experience and networking opportunities with industry experts. The other critical piece of growing my business was the line of credit I obtained through the SBA's Express Loan Program. As the committee knows, bidding on a project and then attempting to secure financing is a painstaking process. The line of credit that we have through the SBA's Express Loan Program means that we can bid on opportunities knowing that we have the backing when we win. The Veterans Entrepreneurship Act, Senator Shahan's legislation to make this fee waiver permanent, is an excellent idea, one that many veterans like me will embrace. In addition, the Veterans Entrepreneurship and Training Opportunities Act of 2014, Senator Pryor's legislation, to make permanent several veteran entrepreneurship programs such as VWise, Boots to Business, and to double the number of veteran business outreach centers from 15 to 30 over the next 5 years would be very helpful to veteran entrepreneurs. I personally know that many veterans consider starting and owning a business at some point in their career transition, and having resources there to make the connection for them would be a critical component to their decision-making process. As my story reflects, federal programs for veterans have been critical to my company's success. Small business programs, especially contracting programs, have leveled the playing field, allowing veteran entrepreneurs to thrive. As the head of a woman-owned business, I can tell you that access to federal marketplace is a huge issue. That's why I have been a strong supporter of the Women-Owned Small Business Federal Contracting Program. Removing the award caps for WOSB program in 2013, which this committee supported, was a great improvement. The Senate will have the opportunity to improve it further by adding sole source authority to the program. This change would help millions of women break through barriers of accessing federal contracts if enacted. The House version of the 2015 National Defense Authorization Act contains this change. I implore the committee to continue funding VWise and the other SBA veteran entrepreneurship programs for all those people like me who are just starting in a growth plateau or are being challenged by business issues. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Payton. Thank you for being here. Mr. Multanen, is that the right pronunciation?
Madam Chairwoman, if you're Scandinavian, you say Multanen. If you're not Scandinavian, you say Multanen. So it works. My wife says Multanen.
Yeah, sure.
Ranking Member Risch and Senators, I have submitted a document for the record that talks about 6 businesses in Idaho. And so I think I'll spend a couple minutes here not reading that, but responding to what I've already heard. I believe it's really important that veterans have skin in the game when they choose to start a business. There has to be a mechanism to where they need to bring some capital to the program. Running a business is hard every day, and most days it's harder. Once you reach a level of success, those challenges change. So I'm on my 3rd SBA loan. I got my first one in 1981 to buy the business, to buy out my 2 partners, and I'm now on my 3rd loan. And so my personal goals today are significantly different than they were when I first started out. I'm concerned about how do we keep a family business in the family and not have to sell to a third party so the old guy can have some money to retire on. And so I'd like to make sure the SBA loan packages allow for legacy transition of businesses. The other issue that I've had the opportunity to be involved in twice is to repay a loan early. It is really irritating to have to pay a penalty to prepay the loan early. The whole idea of the loan is to help someone become successful in their business. So my comment would be, don't penalize them if they want to repay the loan early. Let them repay the loan and move on. In Idaho, the program in Idaho works and works well. And that's because SBDC does a great job, and they partner with SCORE, and the Boots to Business program is led by SCORE in Idaho. I don't know if that's the case around the country. For the last 3 years, SBDC has averaged 150 veteran consultations each year, and they total about 11 and a half hours per veteran. Of that, 45% are looking to start a new business, and 55% are already in an existing business and looking for guidance and help and probably loans to continue to grow their business. What's frustrating and I've served on the SBDI advisory board for 20 years, or right at 20 years. What's frustrating to me is that only 6% of the people who are engaged and involved in the program have true sustaining programs where they intend to grow their business year after year after year. That's where I think some effort needs to be spent, is how do you, it's okay if you want a lifestyle loan and a lifestyle business and all you want to do is take care of yourself and 2 or 3 people. But the goal here is to employ veterans. And so we need to have more veteran businesses that are really focused on growing and have a business plan that allows sustainable growth. Madam Chairman, those are my comments for now.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for being here. And certainly not least in this, but last we'll have Mr. Proulx. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Chair Caldwell, Ranking Member Risch, and Senator Sheehan, and members of the Small Business Committee. Thank you for the opportunity for me to testify today. My name is Dan Proulx, and I'm a managing member of Monument Construction out of Nashua, New Hampshire. I speak to you today as a proud Marine veteran who, following my discharge in 1994, experienced the same types of challenges finding quality post-service employment being faced by many veterans today. I explored several paths in those years, some more promising than others, fortunately culminating with earning a master's electrician's license, followed by my general contractor's license. Today, the construction firm I founded in 2008, along with 3 employees, Monument Construction directly employs up to 44 professionals seasonally, in addition to providing many more quality jobs for our subcontractors. Monument Construction is a verified service-disabled veteran-owned and certified HUB-zone small business, delivering complete construction services, including new construction and renovation, plus full-service electrical, mechanical, plumbing, carpentry, site work, concrete, and project management. Our work includes over 70 federal projects, both design-build and bid-build, and frequently with a focus on environmental sustainability components. Monument Construction in 2012 celebrated delivery of our largest project to date, the $6.5 million psychiatric and polytrauma facility at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in White River Junction, Vermont, and was also awarded our largest project to date, a $7.8 million exterior renovation at the Department of Veterans Affairs in Jamaica Plain in Massachusetts. While some found Monument's initial growth predictions wildly optimistic in 2008, with support from our team, quality subcontractors, customers, agencies such as the New Hampshire PTAC and the Small Business Administration, Monument exceeded those initial goals. At the beginning, Monument Construction's first project was a small one with the Department of Veterans Affairs in Tocas, Maine. With no past performance, we constantly pestered many of the New England's federal contracting offices until one took a leap of faith to give us a chance to succeed with a $22,000 ventilation project. Our success would not have been possible without the help of the PTAP and SBA. In fact, we wouldn't have gotten off the ground without their expert advice of their advisors or without their finance programs. Our PTAP and SBA consultants guided us through the thicket of acronyms, paperwork, and registrations that enabled us to appear on contracting officers' radar in the first place, such as obtaining a cage code, registering for ORCA, and signing up for a DUNS number. In 2009, the SBA contacted us with a bank familiar with the Patriot Express loan program, which from then until now has provided us liquidity to grow, and our Patriot Express loans have grown with us. At the start, without any past performance to demonstrate, with no track record, obtaining conventional financing was an impossibility. As you can imagine, I believe Senator Sheen's Veterans Entrepreneur Act, which among other things, making the SBA loan fee waivers permanent, deserves speedy passage. Our next major step forward came in 2009, when the Department of Veterans Affairs in New England awarded us a covenant spot on a 5-year multi-award construction contract known as a MATOC. This MATOC award boosted us in 2 ways. First, we were awarded 5 of the MATOC's initial seed projects, providing critical cash flow for a new business. Second, and more importantly, for the long term, receiving the MATOC award let other contracting officers know that Monument Construction had passed in unusually rigorous venting. Since that initial MATOC award, Monument has been awarded an additional 14 MATOCs from Albuquerque to Maine. That year in 2009, our first full year in business, we saw about $290,000 in revenue. This year, Monument Construction anticipates a $12 million in revenue. This year, we saw another milestone for our firm when we completed renovations to our building. Once again, the SBA played a role, supporting our renovation with a 504 loan. Finally, even as I testify here, we're finalizing on an SBA Capital Line 7A loan to fuel our ongoing growth. I'm happy to testify today in the spirit of sharing our road to success and the hope that some of what worked for us will help other veterans and entrepreneurs to succeed. In addition to my own post-service employment challenges, I've witnessed other veterans encountering difficulty in jump-starting their post-service careers while serving on the board of directors of Harbor Homes, a New Hampshire veteran housing organization. In addition to employing veterans and veteran-owned subcontractors when possible, my door has always been open to mentor local veterans to encourage them onto the road to success. We've subcontracted. We subcontracted to another service-disabled veteran-owned construction firm, technically a competitor, when they encountered a temporary problem with their CVE certification. The reason behind this was that they could continue to run their business until the issue was corrected, because I believe veterans should help each other out. All of us at Monument Construction are grateful for the programs that helped us succeed, from SBA and PTAP, veterans-only contracting set-asides, to the Veterans Affairs CVE process that has streamlined an easier certification process for legitimate veteran and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. We fully support your efforts to enhance and strengthen these programs so that other veterans may also find success. I thank you today for focusing on the more important issue and hope to assist your work however possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the witnesses. We so appreciate you being here and the testimony and experience you bring. I want to start with a round of questions, and we'll just go, in order here. But I wanted to start with you, Ms. Duso, since you'd seen so many people. And my question is on the kinds of veterans consultations you're seeing in the Northwest. Is this people who come with specific expertise that are part of their military experience that they want to try to capitalize on, or are you seeing people who have a variety of ideas and really want the entrepreneurial and access to capital issues and information about that?
Yes, and I'm happy to answer your question. So a majority of the clients that we do see fall into the second category that you mentioned. I get a lot of emails and phone calls with veterans, and a lot of them are post 9/11 veterans, and they just say, I want to start a business, and I really don't know what to do. So it goes anywhere from walking them through here's how you get a license, what kind of business entity is going to be a best fit for you. Let's talk about how much money you need to make to be financially secure in your own self and for your own family and to be sustainable for your business. And then how much is it going to cost you to run a business? What do all those numbers look like, and do those things line up together? And that's really where we go. I would say that's probably 80% or more. I haven't done any kind of analysis on that, but a majority of my phone calls are that. And then we do see some that come to us that have businesses that are looking to expand. So they need capital for expansion purposes, capital for startup purposes, and then they do have some kind of expertise. I have one guy that was in the military, and now he's working at Amazon, and he does robotics. So he wants some robotics contracting and things like that. So, it is a variety, but I would say most of ours fall into that second category.
And primarily the technical end of help and support first and foremost, as opposed to access to capital.
Oh, yeah. So, the most important thing for us is to make sure that an idea is feasible for somebody, to help them write a good business plan, and to get a good financial roadmap. Because I don't want to help somebody start a business that's just going to leave them 3 years later, 4 years later, and with a lot of debt. And in a worse situation than they were to start with. It takes a lot of time and energy to start a business, so I want to make sure that they're starting off on the right foot, and that they have a real idea that can be successful for the life that they need or that their family needs.
And you mentioned one of the veterans going into the brewing business and having one of the fastest growing breweries. What was that about? Because obviously we have a lot of Northwest breweries in general.
Yeah.
So to claim that you have one of the fastest growing means they're doing something right. What do you think was the success there?
I think it was a few things. They produce a really high quality product. Rich's brother he's informally been called like the brewing savant. They've won some awards
What's the name of the company?
Triple Horn. So they're Triple Horn. They're in Woodinville. Tom Douglas wanted them in a lot of his restaurants, and so they're talking about maybe partnering with the Seahawks next year. So I think it's a combination of they have a really high quality product. They work really hard. Rich is a perfectionist, and so is his brother, and so they don't want to put out a product that is low quality. And they've done a lot of networking in the craft brewery world. I think the latest statistics say Oregon has the #1 number of craft breweries, and Washington has the #2. So it's a really competitive field.
And so their background in the military probably gave them that ability to be very drilled down on the specificity that's required in brewing.
Yeah, and that's what Rich talks about all the time. That his relentless pursuit of the best product possible is part of what has made him so successful, and their organization as well. Just staying organized in their back office. Everything they did from the beginning of setting their back office up to be sustainably, successful is pretty phenomenal.
Great, thank you. We'll have more questions, but I want to give my colleagues a chance. Senator Rich?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, Senator Fisher indicated she did have some questions, but she will submit them for the record. So
Great.
Thank you very much. Gary, it was interesting to hear you note the difference that businesses face and the challenges as they start versus the challenges as they become successful, particularly when it comes to transition to the next generation or what have you. But my observation, and I'd like your thoughts on this, is the SBA plays, I think, a very legitimate role as businesses get going, but usually by the time they get to the point where they're successful and they have the questions of legacy and moving to the next generation, usually the businesses have gone into the private sector and found what they need as far as whether it be legal help or accountant help or what have you. Is that a fair assessment of what happens as a business matures?
Senator Rich, that's a fair assessment, and we're there as a company and a family. We will accomplish the transition to the next generation.
By the way, I know your next generation, and I believe that to be the fact.
Well, I have 2 adult children who are both very smart and very good.
And good lobbyists too.
And and correct. But another option through SBA would just make it better. Okay. Here's the most trouble comes from this approach. You have a successful business, and if you're really successful in what you do, there are lots of people that want to buy you. Most of them are those who are managing large buyout funds. They want to buy you, they want to strip everything out of the business but the profits, and then flip it in 4 or 5 or 6 years. Well, that totally removes the next generation from any successful path. Some of those buyout firms will let the next generation own 3 or 4 or 5%, but that's not owning the business. But the first generation or the second generation wanting to transfer to the third, after you've spent 47 years making a business successful, it'd be nice to have the rewards from doing that. And so if the assets are there in the company, then the second generation or the third generation needs to carry the fiduciary responsibility of becoming owners of that business. And so I'm just looking for another option besides the ones that are available through the private market.
Interesting observation. Ms. Duso and Mr. Jeppson, I appreciate your testimony, and it's always great to hear those success stories. But I'd like to see some metrics on this. Something that we all know they aren't all successes. There's failures in there, and then there's the middle of the road that probably did move forward somewhat well, but maybe didn't set the world on fire. What can you tell me about the metrics available for these programs that you talked about? You start with Mr. Jeppson, please.
Yes, sir, happy to. So let me just break down a couple of the programs and the metrics. So on our lower touch programs like EBV and VWise, we have some pretty good metrics because they've been around about 3 years. So we look at the start rate in the first year, it's well over 50%, and then the start rate is over 70% at year 3. When we look at the employment that they produced, we only have that on EBV, not VWise yet, but on EBV, it's about 1 employee for every new start. So 1,000 new businesses started, 1,000 jobs created, and that's still pretty good. When we consider that 80% of small business is self-employment, and that it's only the other 20% that employs 1 or more employee, I think that that's a pretty good range of where we're going as veteran small business owners. With with Boots to Business, we're still within that first year window. So all we're measuring right now is the throughput through the program. The way the transition assistance has been redesigned is that you actually go through transition assistance a year before you leave the service, ideally. And you receive educational benefit training. You receive training on getting a job from the Department of Labor. VA is there to give benefits, briefings, et cetera. But the optional track that we have, the Boots to Business, we still are within that first year window. We've just reached the 10,000th person to go, service member to go through the 2-day training. Then they can opt into that 8-week online training. So we're watching what the cohort looks like, and I can tell you about what the demographic of that looks like. But it'll be sometime next year. With the $7 million in the budget that we have this year, we're reserved a portion of that to be able to put in a mechanism so that we can actually provide to you what the new starts are, what the failure rate, and we can do that measurable, and we'll do it at the 1-year mark. We'll do it at the 3-year mark for the service member, and then we'll look at the mortality rate at 5-year mark on that. But we're still a little bit ahead of ourselves on that piece.
Very helpful, Mr. Jeppson. It's unfortunate every federal program didn't have those kind of metrics. Ms. Duso, what can you add to the conversation here?
I can tell you it's very similar to what Mr. Jeppson has said. So the Boots to Business program, the VBOC program just started in 2010. Our office itself just opened in September of 2010 itself. Right now, we don't track any kind of mortality rate or anything like that. What we do track is most of the numbers that I gave you. How many new starts do we have? How many employees, are they hiring? We do our best to get updated information from our clients, but, it's not always as easy to get some of those updates from them. And, we do our best to keep in touch with them, but it doesn't always happen.
Thank you. My time's up. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Shaheen.
Thank you very much. Dan, one of the things you talked about is some of the challenges that you had as you started, and access to credit being one of those. Can you talk a little bit more about what you think would be helpful to ensure that startup businesses can get access to credit?
Yeah, I think a lot of the access to credit, as far as in the construction side of things, it's a little tougher because we're more like a management company. But when
Yeah.
you're talking to the SBA and then the banks, I think it would be a little bit more advantageous for a bank to actually, seems that they come up short a little bit with the SBA program. They don't do a lot of them. So even though with the percentages that you're guaranteed, whether it's 75, 85%, the banks still are not, they're not looking to really give you the lending because they're not familiar with the program. So I think a little bit of education on the bank's part to try to educate themselves more with the SBA program and how the percentages work. I mean, it's, like I said, with the construction side of things, it's a little bit tougher to access capital. When you're, bonding projects or anything like that, the bonding company wants to see lines of credit in place. And unfortunately, I mean, Gary here said that you have skin in the game, which I believe is correct. But on some of these other things that you're actually trying to do with the construction side, it's not as easy as it sounds, because that's where the challenges are with us as far as lending.
Well, and one of the things that's in the legislation that we just proposed would make permanent the fee waivers for SBA loans to veterans. But Mr. Jeppson, can you talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you're doing to work with banks to address the credit piece?
Yes, ma'am. If I could talk about the fee waivers just
Sure.
very quickly. So if you look at 2011, which was our biggest lending year ever, SBA.
Is your microphone on?
It is. Let me just pull it a little bit closer, though. If we look at 2011, which was our biggest year lending ever to veterans there, we did about $118 million in the Patriot Express loan, which had a higher fee, which we don't have anymore. And then we did out of the $1.2 billion that we did, we saw a lot of the veterans go to the lower fee loan. So we believe that the fee will be a reduction because that's a cash benefit up front. So we support that. And as I mentioned in my testimony, in the 15 budget, we've asked for a continuation of that, the same as in your bill, and then to reduce that fee on 7A loans above to half, above $350. That's a real tangible dollar savings up front that the veteran sees. So we believe that will have an impact. We continue to look at ways to improve the lending program for them, and we're really trying to dig into what are the biggest lending challenges facing veterans right now. We know anecdotally that credit score affects some and challenges some of our veterans, as well as equity. You're not making a lot of money in the service. I've got a daughter who's in the Marine Corps, and I'll tell you that with her $1,400 a month in pay, she's not building a big nest egg to invest in a startup. But so those two things, credit in some cases with the deployment schedules, it's not hard for a service member to take a ding, but that equity piece remain challenges. What we are also looking at is working with the traditional lenders to encourage them to reach out to the veterans community and see where they can increase their lending. But we've also started with my deputy to focus on the use of the non-traditional lending, if you will, through the community development corporations and through the micro-lending community as well. I would mention just briefly that I recently attended a VetCap, which is a new program offered in partnership with Vets and Tech, where we're actually running panels across the nation where we bring venture capital together along with angel investors, traditional lending, and SBA to focus on that and to actually talk to the veterans communities where they can bring their business ideas. So it's very exciting.
Good. This is a question that came really from New Hampshire, because what we've seen is that boots to business has really been limited in New Hampshire, and either you or Ms. Duso may want to answer this. But can the kinds of initiatives that we've talked about to try and support veteran-owned businesses, can't those services be made available through existing programs? Like, is there an impediment to veterans to going to the SBDCs, for example, to get the same kinds of services that the Boots to Business provides? And why are we setting up another program that may duplicate services that already exist for people?
Yes, ma'am. If I could just answer that, and then I'll let Ms. Duso fill in the details. Boots to Business is the actual transition program where we actually go on base and offer that to the transitioning service members. And so it is actually taught by the resource partners. There's about 20% of the courses are actually taught by members of the district office, but the rest of the courses are taught by the SBDCs, the WBCs, and the people local to base. So this is focused on the transitioning members. One of the single most important things we do is we teach them how to do a feasibility analysis and then help them write a business plan. But key to all of that is that we introduce them to the Resource Partner Network, because when they transition out of the service at the end of that year, they're going to go home to their locale, and then they will look for those resource partners. They will engage the SBDC. And I will tell you that from personal experience, when I left the service the first time to go home and run a family business, I wish I would have known that there was an SBDC and a VBOC 45 minutes away. It would have kept me from making a few of those mistakes. So I think it really enhances the existing programs and gets our service members an earlier introduction and helps set them off on the right footstep.
And, you know, I think for me, from the VBOC perspective, there's a few things that I love about the program. First, I think it adds a lot of credibility to the military community that we are a veteran outreach organization, and that is our number one priority, as opposed to everybody. But, you know, a veteran business owner faces all the same challenges that all other small business owners do, but they also face challenges that other small business owners do not face. And so we understand those challenges. We speak the language of a lot of the veteran business owners, and we're experts in the benefits and advantages of being specifically a veteran-owned business. And so I think that is where the advantages of the VBOC come in versus an SBDC or WBC.
Thank you. My time is up.
Senator Heitkamp.
Thank you so much to both you and the ranking member. I love this subject matter because it combines a couple things that are critically important, which is welcoming home our vets and giving them an opportunity, but also building American businesses. And so I'm really excited about what you do and love hearing Mr. Jeppson about that you're not just looking at SBA, you're advising on angel funds, on Kickstarter, on the other kinds of alternative mechanisms. And there was one I wanted to talk to you about, but I don't remember the name of it, where you actually have a sponsor that brings you to the dance, so to speak, to the website. And really, I just heard about this program from an SBA roundtable I just did in Dickinson, North Dakota. But I want to touch on kind of two issues that are unique to those of us who have a lot of Indian country in our territory. You know, Native Americans serve at a record number, and when they come home, there frequently is not a job back where they live, where their family lives in Indian country. And capitalization of businesses in Indian country is always very, very difficult in making those transitions. And so I'm wondering if you, in conjunction with the Native American portion of the VA, have collaborated on how we can build out more small businesses in Indian country for veterans in Indian country.
So a great question, and it's one area that we've just turned our focus to, is we look at how we can expand entrepreneurial education to our to the 21 million veterans that exist. You know, we have this great program of Boots to Business for our veterans who transition. We're looking into how we leverage this type of capability to those veterans through our Resource Partner Network. We've started discussions not only with White House Native American Affairs, but also with our Office of Native American Affairs here, and we'll be running a pilot on that in August of this year. So we're in the formative stages of focusing on that underserved community.
Well, it would be absolutely critical. I think probably in North Dakota, about 10 to 15% of all the residents and tribal members who live in Indian country are in fact vets. And frequently they're underserved with veteran services because of the remoteness or because there isn't something that recognizes they're in a unique situation. My second question is expanding on your capacity beyond just what SBA can do. And you guys do a great job trying to bring in all the partners. I'm wondering if you found any state that has approached you or that you've approached to build out a greater development of this capability by working within state organizations, either veteran service organizations or looking at, you know, one-stop shopping in various kind of state capacities.
We have, and let me give three specific examples, and I'll be quick. So if you look at Montana right now, one of our VBOCs is actually on a reservation with a veteran service organization, Rocky Boy Veteran Service Association. If you look at the state of New Mexico, we have a VBOC that is actually hosted by the state Veterans, Department of Veterans Affairs there, where they receive a lot of in-kind support, and they leverage a lot of the state resources in their VBOC there. And then thirdly, if you look at Illinois with Secretary Brogdon and her team there, they've taken a lot of proactive initiatives, and they shared best practices with us and us with them on providing entrepreneurial education and training at the state level using state funding. So we partner and share best practices with them, and where appropriate, we use grant relationships to strengthen them. I would mention, if I could just briefly as well, that if you look at EBV and VWise, those are both done as public-private partnerships. You know, if you take example for VWise, we have almost a one-to-one match out of the private sector from great companies to VWise. By using that public-private partnership, we're actually able to really execute at a much higher level than we could ever with public funding alone.
Well, and just to put a fine point on it, North Dakota is blessed because we have something called a state-owned bank and a huge commitment to veterans, and I think there would be some great collaboration at the state bank looking at kind of building out capacity, and I think Jean made a great point, which is we've got all of these kinds of services out there. How do we utilize what we have? It sounds like you're already doing that, but I certainly hope that you're looking at what are the state-based services, the state-based commitments that we can do for all of our veterans, and work that out. And finally, I just have a little bit of time and just a quick suggestion. I think there's a lot of people out there who are at that point where they'd like to invest in someone, and they sure would like to invest in a vet. And looking at angel funds or looking at trying to develop, Kickstarters just for veterans, I think would be an interesting idea, because I think it would be, a lot of investors would be motivated to help American returning vets.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Cardin?
Well, Madam Chair, first of all, thank you for this hearing, and I thank all of our witnesses. This is an extremely important subject in which all of us are reaching out to our veterans community to see how we can be more effective in helping them, particularly in the jurisdiction of the Small Business Committee. Mr. Jeppson, are you familiar with the Veterans Institute for Procurement at Montgomery County?
I most certainly am. It's a great program.
That's what I wanted you to say. We're off to a good start.
Sir, it absolutely is. And I think it fills a very, very needed niche, if you will, in where we're at. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, VIP takes businesses that have been around for a while, have a minimum amount of revenue, and then helps them make the jump into government contracting here. It's really unique, and they do a great job at it. Like everyone else, they struggle with the funding, but we work closely with Barbara.
And you want to explain how much money of the Small Business Administration goes to this program?
We don't provide any money to that.
That's what I want you to say. This is 100%.
It is.
Sponsored by the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce.
It is, and it's a fantastic program, sir.
And it is nationwide in its help. It's not restricted to the businesses or veterans that live in Montgomery County, Maryland. They're helping veteran businesses throughout the country, and doing this because of their patriotic sense that they should do something to help our veteran community. And I've looked at some of the numbers. There were some early numbers in the program. These numbers have gone up dramatically since. But they showed through surveys that they helped create 1,600 jobs. And most of those jobs were veterans, because veteran-owned businesses tend to be more likely to hire veterans and mentor veterans. And my point is this. I'm very supportive of the programs we have. I think we need to build on them, and we need to make sure we get the value. But here we have a program that is totally privately run, that's helping with a natural area that we can in Montgomery County, Maryland, on government procurement because of our location and our expertise, and are helping provide the wherewithal that veteran-owned businesses can get the type of help through government procurement to grow and create more jobs, et cetera. So I guess my point is, there seems to me there should be some way that the SBA can take this model and try to leverage. You point out they are having difficulty in continuing this program year in, year out because of the budget problems, et cetera. But to the extent that we can leverage private sector involvement to help our veteran community where they have a proven record of success, it seems to me this is a natural for us to try to build partnerships with so we can do more to help our veteran community. That's a lead for you to agree with me.
Hey, sir, I couldn't agree more. We've had people, we've had a lot of people go up there from my office, go up there and actually participate in the program and observe the program, and it's a great program. And Barbara Ash does a fantastic job there. In a less resource-constrained environment for us, they are certainly one of the type of programs that we would look to replicate across the nation. They do. I can't really speak highly enough of the program.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would just urge you, one thing you could do that wouldn't cost any money is to promote what is being done by private sector to help our veteran community. It's interesting, I think they try to work with DOD and did not receive a lot of cooperation in trying to promote these programs, and they were directed to the SBA. So I would hope that the SBA would be a friendly environment to figure out how these types of programs can be expanded. And again, it's not so much looking for money, it's looking for ways to make these sustainable programs and helping the private sector direct their own funds in the most constructive way.
Yes, sir, and I would add to that, if I may, that as we see successful business come out of the New Starts from Boots to Business, it's going to be essential that we have programs like this that can help them with that growth. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's that 20% of small businesses actually go to that growth. That's where the job generation happens. There are a lot of self-employment, and that's a wonderful thing. There's a lot of guys who leave the service who are going to go back to, like my hometown of Blountstown, Florida, and they're going to be a welder and a small business owner, and that's fantastic. But there's that 20% that are going to be the job creators, and there's a good segment that will be in the government contracting arena and others that will need that help to make it from that. The needs of a startup are certainly different than the needs of the $2 or $3 or a couple $1 million revenue trying to make that jump, and we need to be there with them for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask another round of questions, so if any members want to, welcome to stay to do that. But I'm going to ask you, Ms. Payton, you made some testimony about the removing the federal caps and the sole source authority. Can you expand on that, about why you think that's so important in helping small businesses?
From my experience, the competition and the market in the federal contracting arena is extremely difficult for small women-owned businesses. So when you get the audience of a program manager in a federal agency, and you get the audience of a contracting person that's willing to set aside opportunities because of the products that you provide, those caps can impede that progress, which turns that into a real opportunity for a business. So removing those caps in places where it doesn't really make sense is, I think, going to open up the market for women-owned small businesses and allow the government to reach the goals that they've set and have tried to expand.
Okay, and do you have any comments on the waiving of the fee on the financial side that Mr. Proulx and other people have testified to?
Well, yeah, my fee was waived under the Recovery Act, and so I continue to renew my line of credit that I've had from years ago. So if you have to pay that fee and you have to add that to your overhead, every little bit counts, especially as a small business, you're competing amongst other small businesses that have very lean operations. So the fee is another thing that you have to work to build into your product. And it can be very difficult when the bank has their set of fees and then the SBA has fees that you have to pay as well.
And so, Ms. Duso, are you seeing this as a key issue in some of the things that you've seen in the Pacific Northwest? The fee as a barrier to actually getting businesses financed?
I think any expense to a business is a barrier to getting them financed. The fee, having the fee waived specifically is a great idea. I love it. It's more money into the pockets of those veterans and the up front. And Trena said, she quit her job and kind of took the, I like to call it burning the boats approach to starting her own business. And so a lot of times people are living off of their savings, you know, or they have just transitioned out of the military and maybe they have some kind of money that they've received. And so they're trying to live on that, off of that money upfront at the beginning, and any of that upfront beginning savings is a gateway for them to be able to more quickly create more revenue and add that money back into their business operations.
Mr. Jeppson, Senator Risch brought up this very important point about metrics, and I understand from your answer about, you know, some of these programs are just getting underway, but do you have any metrics on how many people may have gotten to that point on the financial thing but decided to turn back because of the fee?
We don't, and I'll be honest, on the fee piece with the Veterans Advantage, we've only got a first quarter because we just started at the first of the year, so we're still a little new into that. We looked at the overall total lending; it's consistent with what we've seen in the past 2 years. So we think that with a little more time and a little more outreach to the veterans community, let them know about this advantage and the fact that with the new piece that we'll implement at the beginning of the fiscal year with the reduction above 350, we think that we'll see kind of an acceleration of lending back on veterans.
What was the higher amount?
So the fee will be reduced to half for 7A loans above $350,000 for veterans. So right now on a loan above up to $350,000, a veteran can save over $5,000 on that loan. They'll pay half the fee above that. So if a veteran was looking for $1 million line of credit, that could be a $50,000 savings to him.
Yeah, I think measuring, having some assessment, even if you can, just on that portfolio of packages that have been approved on this program, I think would give us some understanding about what what the market demand is, so to speak, for SBA, loans under this program, and give us some idea. It's hard to think, and the stories that I've heard today, that people are going to have $50,000 laying around for financing, of an idea. You're talking about boots to businesses. To me, I just think about bootstrapping in general, and any small business is more in the bootstrapping mode, and so coming up with $50,000 seems like a huge barrier. But anyway, I'd love to know more. And Mr. Proulx, did you have any comment on that before I turn it back over to my colleagues?
Yes, on that loan that he was talking about, the $1 million, I'm actually going through the cap line right now, and that cost is roughly $30,000 is what I got to pay up front. Right now, where I'm looking at just to secure $1 million line. So right now, they're looking for, basically, if I can get this, it's looking at a $30,000 fee for that line. That's accurate.
Okay, good. Senator Risch?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, Senator Shaheen?
We've been talking about procurement, and I know, Dan, one of the things you talked about in your testimony was the support from PTAP, the New Hampshire Procurement Assistance Program, to help guide you through the process initially. Can you talk about what, from your perspective, we could do to improve the federal procurement process in a way that would be more user-friendly?
The PTAP and the SBA have been very helpful in my region. I think with the procurement on the federal side of things with the DOD, they're still doing the self-verification, unlike the VA, which is doing the CVE. And I think that with the fraud possibly on the DOD side, because they don't have that extra, with the self-verification not actually putting the teeth in things, I think on the federal side, you'd have a little bit more where the veteran or the service-disabled veteran-owned company would have a better procurement process on that DOD side. Right now, the VA kind of weeded out a lot of the fraud, which when I started in 2008, there was 6,500 companies registered in the VA CVE, and that was the self-verification. When 2010, Obama put the teeth into it, we're looking at right now 1,280 approximately veteran-owned businesses that are actually registered in that CVE. So you're looking at almost 5,000 companies that were potentially fraud or that just disappeared. And I'm sure on the procurement side, as far as the DOD side, you're probably looking at there's got to be something on that end. So on the procurement side, I would like to see, you know, some type of legislation with the veterans on that end. And also with the procurement process, with bonding fees and things like that. And we find that the procurement, when we do an RFP, some of these agencies are not getting right back to award these projects. So it could be pushed out a year. So if I bid a job that's $1 million or $2 million, I'm actually tying up my bonding for $1 to $2 million until that's actually awarded. And that could take up to a year. And you're talking a small business being strung out for a year or two. I mean, that's painful. I mean, you know, you have a business to run, and that can really, hurt your business. So on the federal side, on the fraud thing would be looked at, and then if the RFPs and the awards can come out a little bit quicker on the procurement end, that would be great.
Good, thank you. Ms. Payton, I know that you talked about the challenges that women face. As we looked at our Veterans Entrepreneurship Act, one of the things we learned is that even though women now make up 14% of the military, only about 4% of veteran-owned businesses are owned by women. So one of the things that we have included in our act are a requirement that SBA examine whether the counseling programs are actually reaching women veterans to help them as they think about what options might be available to them. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the hurdles are that women veterans might be facing as they're looking at trying to start a small business?
Yes. You know, there's a camaraderie that comes with being in the military, and then when I experienced the VWISE program, the camaraderie sort of extended to other women that wanted the business. So I think that when you create a community of people with like interests, what happens is they tend to support each other, and they tend to lend themselves as being a resource. So I know that there are plenty of programs out there that provide counseling, that provide education, but that missing link was the networking and the camaraderie and the support that came at the VWISE conference. And so that coupled with the learning and education with the industry experts, that sort of clicked for me. I normally don't think of my service on a day-to-day basis, but when we got together as soldiers and in that natural sort of kinship really sort of clicked for me.
Thank you.
Senator, if I could just briefly add along that, just 2 points quickly. VWISE it's a great program, and when I first came in, I thought, well, why do we have to have some veteran's a veteran? Why are we differentiating? But after having been to one, I clearly see the value in it. And one of the things that we ask the private partners to give as well as money is their mentors to come along there. I would point out that with Boots to Business, that as we track the cohort that goes through Boots to Business right now, a quarter of the participants in Boots to Business are female. And so when you consider that 14% of the service is female, that they're over-indexing, or we have a lot more female veterans choosing the entrepreneurship track than are in the service. So we think that this will help increase the number of veteran female small business owners.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Good. Well, I want to thank all the witnesses, and obviously, as the usual hearing, we'll leave the record open for 2 weeks. So if any of my colleagues who aren't here wanted to submit questions for the witnesses, they can do so, and we'll keep that for the official record. But thank all of you very much for being here and for your testimony and for your leadership on this important issue. You certainly have told us a lot of inspirational things today about what veterans are doing to help our economy grow, and we certainly want to partner with you all in making that happen at even a higher rate through the more efficient and effective use of these programs. So if nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you.